To put it simply, what we're doing with HootRecruit is creating an AI agent for the candidate sourcing process. But I think that still is that human art of figuring out, what's going to get the person to respond.
Because in the end, if you don't fit the culture, it doesn't matter how big a genius you are.
I think the number one question or concern that we see from our users is the concept of trust.
If you're developing an application, if you're developing an AI agent, make sure you have the human in the loop. I do believe that over the next few years, we're going to see AI in much of the recruiting process. And what will be left for the humans, it's that ultimate judgment, right? Ultimate judgment about the human characteristics of your candidate.
Welcome to another episode of Humans of Staffing. It's Sammy Singh here along with my co-host TJ Sammy. Both of us are here with our guest David Windley. He is the founder and CEO of HootRecruit. David, welcome to the party, so to speak. We have just briefly met, and the goal here is for us, we concentrate on staffing. That's the industry we know. That's the one that we function in. And the biggest component of it is we don't get to see as much of the HR side of it, although it is HR. Everybody's concentrating on recruitment is a big deal, sourcing, matching, then tracking the time, billing for people, and then payroll. These are all components of it. And sourcing is a very big component of that. So in HootRecruit, I know you're a startup, but we'd love to hear everything about what you're doing today. And again, one of the I'd say pleasant surprises in your profile was you work for Microsoft, you work for Yahoo. These are companies that all of us recognize. I would love to hear more about it. But let's start with what does HootRecruit do today? So welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. I mean, to put it simply, what we're doing with HootRecruit is creating an AI agent for the candidate sourcing process. So we're taking that business process of sourcing candidates, passive candidates, and really creating an AI agent that can do that for the user. And so quickly, if you drop in a job description, or if you just wanted a free-form language in a box, it can parse that out into a search spec, use that to search the internet for all public profiles that would match against your search spec, and then provide an assessment, pros and cons of why this candidate is potentially a good candidate or not in a summary fashion for the user, so that the user could make a decision if they want to proceed with this candidate or not. And then we also allow engagement through email campaigns within HootRecruit. But we also let you easily export all of these candidates that you find into your CRM, your ATS, or whatever other systems you're using, because we know we're just one source, right, of candidates. You may also get candidates from active sources like your job posting on Indeed or LinkedIn or on your website. And so we serve to help with the passive candidate sourcing part of the recruiting process.
So on this, is it mainly meant for is it blue collar, gray collar? Is it white collar? Is it, who's the candidate that's perfect candidate for you?
Yeah, good question. I think the AI works best in finding and matching when you have criteria such as work experience or specific skill sets required for the role. So that tends to be professional level jobs all the way up to C-suite. So those are the roles that are best suited to use AI to scan the internet and find profiles that match. Entry-level jobs where there's not a lot of skill set, they're more characteristics of the person, are harder to screen through looking at a profile.
You've got so many different angles of, experience in this whole arena. TJ, I think you had a question. I'll let you go first and then I'll go into it. I'll go deeper into something else. I heard you go.
No. So David, one thing, that really interests me actually. Just prior to us having this conversation, you mentioned how systems prior to quote unquote AI being introduced approach sourcing at a very different approach versus how it is today.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be beneficial for our audience to understand what does truly an AI native sourcing entail versus how it was 3 years ago, and why that's important, because that's the differentiating factor here.
Yeah. So first of all, when we say AI, the broadest definition of artificial intelligence, it's been with us for a long time. I go back to the search industry. Like I used to work for Microsoft and Yahoo. We competed against Google in the search space. And so that was search, machine learning, right? Netflix recommendations, all of those Amazon recommendations, those are all chatbots. That's all AI. The difference is the large language model, the generative AI is different. And with ChatGPT, for most of us, we experienced it in 2022. That's different. And why is it different? And I'll talk specifically in the search industry. Prior to generative AI, where generative AI can read something, so to speak, and understand it, kind of like a human would, right? Like we could read a resume and understand it. Before that, it was keyword searches, right? Most of the tools that you used, including LinkedIn and all the other sourcing tools, it was mainly keyword searching. You might write a Boolean search string to say if they had, this language as an engineer or this language, right? But now the AI can read a resume much like a human and comprehend it and understand. That's a big difference. And so the search tools that were built before, these large language models, they're really kind of keyword. And then now you can understand, right, semantic language and do searches and make assessments. That's huge. The other thing is with these AI tools, there are newer AI search tools out there like Perplexity. Okay. Again, they're using AI to search. And now that's available for application developers to use, which is different than, say, 3 years ago.
Got it. Thanks.
What has changed, David, in your opinion, before it used to be getting to the candidate, right? It was really the response of the candidate and everything else. Yeah. Where has AI made it, what do you feel, quicker to, of course, it's made it easier to get hold of the person. What other changes have you seen to where you need, how much less of a staff does someone need to do with the same workload as a recruiter? Because there used to be, in a way, a boiler room for recruiters before.
Yes.
You had people sitting, you had to make a certain amount of calls, get a certain. Where has that, because you've seen that evolution occur in your entire career?
Good question. I think there are some things that the AI can do now and help speed up, and some things it hasn't done yet. And your question about engaging a potential candidate, I think is still the part that, as humans, good recruiters, and can make a difference, right? But where AI can really speed up productivity is like what we're doing at the very top of the funnel, right? Sifting through thousands of resumes, eyeballing them to say which ones are a match. Or you're right. We used to have sourcers spend hours and hours, right? That can happen like that with AI. Okay. So that scouring large amounts of profiles, limiting them down, giving an assessment can happen now in seconds, where that used to be hours and hours. The other thing that the AI can help with is at least setting up email campaigns and templates, right? And that can speed that process up. But the art of convincing someone to respond to your messaging is still there. Now, AI can give you drafts. You can command it to say, write this email in this sort of fashion or whatever, so it can help you. But I think that still is that human art of figuring out, what's going to get the person to respond. So good news for those good sourcers and recruiters out there. We still need you. But those are the two areas I think that the AI right now, it can make a huge difference. Now, there's a lot of innovation happening in other parts, and it's getting better and better. For example, I am seeing a lot of startups doing AI interviews. So I believe that AI screening interview is probably the first one that AI can do well, because a screening interview is mainly gathering more information, right? It's like, get the person on the phone and, hey, I noticed this on the resume. I wanted to fill in some blanks. You're not really having a dialogue back and forth interview. I think that interview, so it's still part of the sourcing process, AI will tackle here soon. It'll be as good, and that will save time. Others are working on the full interview, right? Just getting on a Zoom call with an AI recruiter, having a discussion, answering questions, the AI being facile enough to, depending on your answer, to then ask follow-up questions. So they're working on that. So that might be the next thing that you'll see that AI can really help in the recruiting process. So I do believe that over the next few years, we're going to see AI in much of the recruiting process, and what will be left for the humans and for the good recruiters, it's that ultimate judgment, right? Ultimate judgment about, the human characteristics of your candidate and why that person is going to be the right culture fit, the right fit for this company, for this job. Those sort of things, I think the AI won't be able to do anytime soon. And I think that's where the recruiters need to continue to add their value.
So given, David, that I wouldn't call it an autonomous AI agent, right? It's an agentic AI that's facilitating a sourcing process and maybe expediting some of the processes that it's best known for, and then humans come in.
Right.
What is the kind of adoption rate that you're seeing on your side by prospects? I know you target small to medium.
Yeah.
What is the kind of feeling in the market today where you walk in and you're like, what are some of the red flags and green flags that you experience in today?
Yes. No, it's a good point. I think in the early adoption phase of any technology, and I think that's where we are with, the generative or large language model and the agentic AI, you have different camps. So, you have the early adopters that are like eager to try it out. And I think those are the people that are ending up being our customers. Those are the easier sell. They see the productivity gains for them. They're not as concerned about the AI taking their job. They see it as a productivity tool. And those are the people that are gravitating towards it. But yes, I do think there's a lot of fear for people, especially in our recruiting space, that, the AI is going to take over my job and, to kind of stiff arm it. And then a lot of people may not just really understand how it can help them. So I still think we're in the early days of the adoption cycle. But I do believe, like, if you look at in the history of any new technology, you're right, you get the early adopters and the people over time. I do believe agentic AI in the recruiting process will become mainstream.
You're right. We've got a number of AI related tools as well within our platform. I think the number one question or concern that we see from our users is the concept of trust, right? Mm-hmm. Because what it is unlike other innovations and technologies out there, you're almost replicating yourself. And you're saying, TJ used to do X. Now, my digital coworker, this new agentic AI tool, is going to do what TJ does. Now, do I trust this individual or not to do?
Yeah.
And so that's usually the number one, at least in our experience, trust. And then, of course, it's how mature it is, what's the security, what the future really is at the end of the day. If you can trust a technology that has the security guardrails around it, that can scale at a personalized manner, that's the winner. But that takes time. And I think that's where this tech is evolving. Right?
Yeah. To your point about trusting the AI, meaning trusting it to bring back the right answers or the right quality or et cetera. And therefore, at this stage in the development of AI, the best practice, and I talk to a lot of people in this space, if you're developing an application, if you're developing an AI agent, make sure you have the human in the loop, right? For sort of like the editor, right? That can review and say, yes, this is good, this is not good. And there has to be checks within your process, whatever process you're creating. In our case, with candidate sourcing, the user of our platform is that human in the loop. And we ensure that at different points that you as the user are really making the decision. It's not 100% left to the AI. The AI can go off and find all these candidates, present 50 candidates to you, but you ultimately will say, yes, I think this is a good candidate or not, right? AI will give you the information and then you approve or not approve. And so there are some systems that don't do that. You give it to the AI, they let it run, and that's what you get. We believe the best practice with the maturity of AI as it is today is you still need the human in the loop. To your question about trust, and is AI really 100% there with the quality and so forth?
So in your case today, if I'm a small to medium-sized organization, and one of the questions we get asked all the time is how you're preventing bias within your AI, because you're leveraging all these large language models behind the scenes. How are you addressing those good type of questions specifically about bias?
Yeah, I'll go back to what I said about the human in the loop. I mean, so what we're doing is having the AI do some of the, what I'd say, grunt work or busy work that the recruiter would do, right? Look through the resumes, bring you back. And again, the AI isn't saying that these are the candidates you have to go forward with. It's going to give you a summary. It's going to give you information. And the human, the user, is still the one, at least in our process, that will decide. So that's how we're trying to help with that versus just leaving it 100% up to the AI. And whatever training bias that AI might have had is embedded, right? Now, I'm not saying that there's no bias. I mean, there's just as much bias in the human process that we have today, with the humans in the loop. But at least that's a way to have a check against the AI's bias, is keeping the human in the loop.
David, one thing that has been of concern within this, right? Now, you are collecting data from all the sources that you find, right? Today, let's say it's I worked here, I worked there. Now, is it going deeper to where what's concerning me a lot these days is it even going up to the point where now what the request is, I want to look at all of their social media activity. I need to see where they made what comments, what did they do?
Yeah.
Is that becoming now, I mean, you being an HR professional, I mean, you're an OG in HR, but this is like, where do we draw the line on that?
Yeah, so I could tell you we're not doing that. So all we're doing is going for public profile information. So if you have a profile on GitHub, if you have a profile on Angels List, if you have a profile, maybe even on your Facebook or Twitter, if you specifically put out a professional profile that's publicly available for anyone to find on the internet. That's where we're not going behind the firewalls. We're not doing anything like that. So this is public information that someone has already said it's okay. It's public. So that's where now. It is a good question about social media because, in Facebook, you've made it public, right? So yes, there could be tools. I don't know of any specifically, but I imagine they might be out there that can scrape and find that. Again, if a human could find it, an AI, you could just make the AI do what a human would have otherwise had to do, but just faster. So to your about the ethics of it, people are saying, well, is that unethical? Well, a human could go look at your social media, information right now. And some companies do that. Some companies don't. So you should just know that. And yes, the technology will make it easier and faster to be able to do that. We're not doing that, but yes, there may be other startups and tools that would do that.
Yep, and that's why it's becoming more and more critical that the jobs or whatever should be asking up front that this is going to be the criteria we're going to have.
Yeah.
And part of that criteria is going to be we're going to be looking at your social media feeds from these 4 or 5 different mediums to be able to find it. Now, in your experience, is the AI bubble just as bad as the .com bubble? Because this thing is going nuts right now.
I was just having that conversation with someone the other day. And I've been around for a while. And so, here in Silicon Valley, it was, the PC revolution, the hardware, Unix workstations, there's a lot of, innovation there. And then the internet in 95, when Netscape, made it accessible. The internet was there. It just wasn't accessible to the common person. And then Netscape came along. And I feel that's kind of, in some ways, it's not exactly the same, but there's some parallels to when the ChatGPT came out in 2022 with the large language models. And as application developers using, the core large language models like ChatGPT or Claude enables so much new application development, like what we're doing, right? We're using this technology underneath, just much like the internet opened up new business models, I think that is similar. And in the internet boom, if you remember, there was it opened up a lot of infrastructure that needed to be developed, right? And so they had people building fiber optics, and you remember the boom, and a lot of people invested, and there was more fiber optic cable that we needed. I don't know if that's going to be the case with the data centers, right? But it's the equivalent of the infrastructure needed to make this AI work, and a lot of investments happening. Because AI, maybe it's insatiable, maybe it can, who knows? But yes, there are some signs that there's some similarities, and that happens throughout history, right? A new technology, sometimes we overshoot initially, but I do think long term, it's an up to the right trend, absolutely, and that's what we found with the internet, right? Maybe we overdid it a little bit, but remember, we got Google, we got Amazon, we got all those first generation companies out of that boom. And so while pets.com fell, Amazon grew to be one of the most valuable companies in the world. So I think the same thing will happen here, right? Yes, there'll be some people that, will fall, but we're going to see the future most valuable companies in the world come out of this boom, I believe.
And you've been through the journey of what's happened at Yahoo, what happened, Microsoft, you worked for them culture-wise. In your experiences, all of those, which one had that, there's that growth mindset, right? As a company, there's 2 types of companies that at least we come across. We're a small company ourselves. One is you've grown so much, you get full of yourself and you completely miss every cue that existed out there. And you go down because of you are yourself the most damaging. The number 2 is the mindset of growth. We are never perfect. We continue to grow, and we're here to serve something, and we're going to continue to break and grow. Where did you feel that culture existed? Where you felt that these guys were
Microsoft. Yeah, Microsoft, and they've proven it out, right? I mean, they with the PC revolution, we're the leaders, but, now then cloud computing, and now with AI, at every step of the way, Microsoft has always been innovating. They have their core products and they're dominant, but they have a culture that they have the research group and such, and they spend a lot of money on whatever new technology is coming next. And I think Google does a good job with that too. And so you see these companies that catch the next wave and the next wave and the next wave because they're constantly innovating and thinking about what's next and investing in those technologies as big companies, right? As big companies. And then you obviously have all the startups that start with every new wave of technology. But yeah, definitely Microsoft, I think, has proven, and it's embedded in their culture. They are definitely, one of the best technology companies, I think.
I'm going to give you a two-pronged question. So one is being, you as an HR, right? Your customer really is the executives or the team members, right? That need certain talent. You have to go out and find it. So on one side, I would love to know, you don't have to name the company. So we're not looking for the company. Which company used to have a demand of the weirdest, strangest questions you had to ask, had to do tests? And I'll give you an example of it. I was once in a staffing, so I was out, went to go to a private jet company, and he said, I need air stewardesses. I said, okay. He said, but one of my strange needs is when I do interview them, I like to go out and tell them, show me your car. I want to look at how clean it is, because that tells me how disheveled their life. I'm like, You just can't ask that stuff, man. It's just, sorry, I won't do this.
And I'm not sure that's accurate, right?
Yes. So I need to, so in your experience in all of these, there has to be one which is completely weird. And then the other side could be, you could name whatever you needed to, that what an amazing system process they had, that the success of that recruitment was so good, and that you felt like, yep, I am, what I found, this person is the right one. Yeah. So let's go with the craziness first.
Well, so I say in general, I try to shoot down all those crazy interviews. So if I came across them in any of the companies that I was a CHRO or a leader in HR and saw, it oftentimes comes from the hiring managers, not so much the recruiting team that try to introduce these things. And then get people really focused back on what are the characteristics and qualities that will make this person successful in this role, and ask questions that will give you information to indicate that, right? And when people try and throw like the one you said, like, if they clean their car, that's an indicator. Well, let's test that a little bit, right? Now, if you want to test to see if they're organized or stuff, okay, we can help you with some questions that will test that. Okay. So that would be my approach for that. So those sort of far out there, they're usually based in that person's mind that there is a correlation between this, whatever obscure thing, and what they're really after. So what I do is go, what are you really after? And let's help you screen for that. So that's how I do that. As far as the process, one of the companies, and you guys probably know who it is, I think had a really good process of testing for culture fit. So in our interview process, they had a role, they called it as appropriate. So a lot of people will know who this is if they've been through this process. Is in the interview team, you added someone, and it doesn't have to be someone that's in the chain of command of that organization, but that this company felt was a good steward of the culture of this company, that understood the characteristics of the types of people we wanted to hire at this company. And that person was on the interview team to interview for that. Not necessarily the skill sets, and that's left to the other interview teams, but this quote as appropriate person was on that interview loop just for that reason. And I think that was a really good practice.
And what that did is got you a better culture fit, because in the end, if you don't fit the culture, it doesn't matter how big a genius you are.
Yes, exactly.
And culture starts, of course, within a company. Everybody's got their culture. We don't even realize sometimes we've created a culture. So in your experience in these cultural fits, what was give a one example or where you thought someone fitted and it was a completely miss? Like, is there any, I'm always looking for crazy stories in HR, right? Because we've all had them. Was there anything that you feel that missed the mark where you thought you had the perfect candidate in place?
Oh, it happens all the time.
And how did they beat the system, right? Yeah. How did they beat the system?
Yeah. Well, people study on how to interview and they answer the questions a certain way. I mean, it's hard. And there's a skill to doing behavioral based interviews to try and pin the person down, but you can't always get it right. But I'll tell you, and I'll talk about at the executive level. So most of my career, I've operated at the executive level and as, C-suite leadership team. I think the people that have failed, you've interviewed them, they came in, you thought they were good, and then why did they fail? It's usually around what I'm going to call politics. Small p politics is that someone is doing things not in the best interest of the entire company or the entire team, but for themselves. And that's usually what kills, right? That's, at the C-suite level, you're going to be smart. You're going to be competent. All those things are there. And so it's usually these other characteristics that make or break a successful executive. And I find that the ones that end up making decisions more on political basis, whether that means for my own best interest and not the rest of the company or whatever political reason, not putting on the CEO's hat and say, what is the right decision for the entire company? Wherever you sit, you should be making decisions that's right for the entire company. And that's where I see where people fail. That shows up eventually, right? When you continually do that. And that's hard to discern in an interview. I mean, we try, but a lot of these political players are smart and masters at it. So they get through that process. But you'll see it.
David, where do you see your growth trajectory for HootRecruit? What is your, let's say, your 6-month, 1-year plan?
Yeah.
In regards to growth, in regards to partnerships, what's your plan that you would love
the plan right now? We just launched the full agentic AI agent, and we're going after the smaller companies. We think that's the right target first. So accumulate the customer base there. I think over time we can build out our roadmap for more enterprise companies, but I think right now it's going to be going after the smaller recruiting firms. Most of the search firms are 1 to 4 partners make up about 80-85% of the entire search industry. Then you got the few big Treks and a few companies up there, but most of the industry is that 1 to 4 partner. And that's who we're going to go after. And then we are going to look at channel partners. I mean, that is a way to accelerate adoption and growth. And so we'll look for different places, like maybe PEO firms. They offer a lot of things to small businesses, maybe outsourcing some recruiting, other channel partners, that are adjacent to recruiting that could offer recruiting. We'll look to those potential partnerships too.
Any goals on those? Any names that you'd love to hang your hat with?
Not know what I'm going to say out here. If I'm talking to them, then they know who they know.
Got it. And in this industry, any success story, any company that you aspire towards, where you feel like, gosh, I wish this is how we would love to build something and grow in this particular space.
So in the recruiting software space.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting because LinkedIn has been so dominant, right? It's there's not a lot of number twos to look for. I do think in the sourcing space, HireEasy and SeekOut are probably the 2 companies that have been the most successful besides LinkedIn, right? In the space. So, again, like I said, but they were built before the large language model breakthrough. I don't know if they're adjusting and doing things differently, but they were built in the 2016, 17s era, I think. But yeah, those are two companies that have made breakthroughs in this space. And if we could be as successful as those guys, that would be great.
And does LinkedIn have anything of this nature yet, or have they? Because they are going pretty hard at it right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't want to give LinkedIn too much information for them to go do things, but yeah, it is a little bit of a paradox, right? You would think that, I mean, they should do this, right? My guess is because they are a social media company, and part of their incentive is to keep their users engaged on their platform, that they are actually missing an opportunity to be the best tool for recruiters and sourcers. I'll just leave it at that. That leaves an opening for the rest of us. But if they wanted to, I mean, they could shut all of this down. I mean, not shut down like stop us, but by offering something that would be just phenomenal for recruiters and sourcers. But I think they have competing interests, right? For example, they don't give recruiters or sourcers emails, phone numbers. Why? Because they want you to use InMail, because they're incenting you to stay on LinkedIn, which is good for them. It's not necessarily good for the customer of a recruiter or sourcer. You get what I'm saying? So if they were to switch their mindset and say, let's optimize for recruiters and sourcers, they could have a product that no one could touch. But they're not.
My question is more on the personal level, David, is being a leader now of, AI tool organization. How do you keep up with all these moving parts on a daily basis? Like, how do you manage that, and how do you distill noise, right? A lot of this is just noise, and then reality, and then what to incorporate. What is your process, or at a personal level? Like how, what do you need? How do you both know?
Yeah. So one, I think it's two parts. One is I do think you want to, and I, as a person, try and educate myself as broadly as possible. So read up on everything that's coming out in this space and AI and so forth. But then counter that with, as far as my company's concerned, being very focused and not trying to chase all the things. And so that's why, again, we're choosing to be very specific, to only deal with the very top end of the funnel of the process. I mean, there are opportunities to do all kinds of other things, but we're saying we're going to get good at just the candidate find, matching process of candidate sourcing with our AI agent, and target the small to mid-sized companies, right? Again, we could try and target the universe, and that leads itself to all types of other features that we would need for enterprises. So it's a combination of educating yourself, knowing all these possibilities, but then at the same time being very disciplined and just figuring out an area that you want to stay focused on. And so, that's a constant battle. We see things, I see startups like, I could partner with this person. But you got to stay disciplined as a startup.
And how are you educating? Is it mainly newsletters, webinars? You've got subscriptions. How do you keep all of it? Right.
And then network. I mean, I think, network with people that that are in the space, or maybe you don't know them, get to know them. All of the above. And I would add just, network with people that are knowledgeable in the space. Yeah.
David, what about, meaning you're in the Silicon Valley, do you think still that value holds true? All our careers, we've always thought we're in Southern California. Gosh, I wish we were sitting in Silicon Valley. There's still there was always that pizzazz, the culture, the vibe that existed of, have you raised money already? And do you feel you being poised in Silicon Valley has really helped you?
Yeah, right now it's friends and family angel investing. We're at the very first stage. And then, maybe a year from now, we'll be going out for our first round. So we have enough funds right now through sort of angel. And so that's where we're at right now. But as far as networking, Silicon Valley is great. But I would also say, right, we're interacting over a video chat. I think most of everyone has gotten used to this, and it's easy to network virtually these days, right? So it's not the, having coffee at Bucks at Woodside, right? That everyone has to be over here or at the Rosewood, over there, in Sand Hill Road. I think that's a misnomer, right? So you can network, reach out to people, get to know them, and,
So it still has that pizzazz no matter what, but with virtual, we can pretty much, and that's so true. There's a PE firm I was supposed to talk to, and they'd emailed me saying, hey, we're in town in LA this week. And for me, it was more difficult to go from here to LA and spend half an hour with them and come back, right? That was a 5 to 6 hour process. And I said, listen, while you're in LA, can we do half an hour quick Zoom so we get to know each other? And they said, listen, then it doesn't matter. We'll be back in Boston and we'll ping you next week. And I'm like, yep, that works. Because I don't have 5 to 6 hours to spare in a day.
Right.
Go up and down and go meet with them. So 100%, true to your deal. Anything, David, we may have missed out that we didn't ask or we could talk about?
No, this was great. I love chatting with you guys, and, all the best to your podcast. And thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure, David.
No, it's a pleasure with your experience and background, and with AI, you incorporating AI and you understanding the HR processes and roles. It's extreme value of bridging those two, aspects of implementing AI within an HR process. That's rare to find individuals who kind of know both, right? Usually you've got the techies or you've got the HR professionals, but combining those two, that's I'm sure love to see a demo of the product one day.
Yeah.
So
we'll absolutely set that up, and hopefully this was helpful to your listeners, and I appreciate being on you asking me to be on your podcast.
Okay, we appreciate you being here, David. Thank you so much.